Hey guys, tonight we slip quietly into a Roman military camp, not during a heroic charge or some dramatic siege, but on one of those completely uneventful mornings when nothing dangerous happens, and you, a slightly bored legionary, wake up knowing you'll spend the entire day doing basically nothing. There's something strangely comforting about that, right? No alarms, no shouting centurions, just the soft rustle of canvas and the low murmur of men who are too sleepy to complain. And honestly, with the way this place smells, you probably won't survive this without at least one deep sigh of regret. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I always love seeing the little map we create together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You stretch beneath your coarse wool blanket, feeling the faint morning chill still clinging to the inside of the tent. Outside, the camp hasn't fully woken yet. It hums in slow motion, like someone pressed the world's snooze button. A few soldiers shuffle past, their sandals scraping softly across the packed dirt. The air smells of damp earth, stale embers from last night's fire, and that uniquely Roman perfume of sweat, leather, and a generous helping of, please don't think too hard about this smell. It's not the most glamorous scent profile, but you get used to it. You slip on your tunic and step outside the tent flap. The sky's still pale, the sun not quite committed to the day. Relatable, honestly. The horizon glows a soft orange that feels almost too gentle for a camp full of hardened men trained to conquer continents. But even conquerors get slow mornings. Even they wake up rubbing their eyes and wondering where they left their sandals. Around you, the camp is arranged with math-class precision. Romans loved order almost as much as they loved conquering other people's land. The tents line up in clean rows, forming little alleyways that feel strangely cozy when the camp is quiet like this. According to one mainstream historical fact, the layout of a Roman castra barely changed for centuries. Even the shape of modern military bases owes a little debt to these neat rectangles. Pretty impressive for people who didn't have graph paper. A few fires crackle as soldiers coax them back to life. One man mutters about how he's sure the gods personally hate mornings. Another tries to fold his cloak but ends up creating something that looks like a failed origami wolf. And somewhere nearby, someone sneezes loud enough to scare two mules. A normal, peaceful start. You walk toward the main road of the camp, the Via Principalis. It cuts straight through the center like a big "This way please" sign, guiding you past the command tents and central courtyard. The gravel crunches satisfyingly under your feet, though one tiny rock finds its way into your sandal, which historians still argue whether counts as a minor war crime. You stop, shake it out, and continue your slow morning wander. A centurion you know, gruff voice, huge shoulders, surprisingly soft spot for dogs, stands nearby, arms crossed, scanning the camp with the look of a man who pretends he enjoys discipline, but secretly wishes he could go back to bed. He nods at you. "Morning," he grumbles, which might be the most enthusiastic thing he'll say all day. You nod back, equally enthusiastic. A quirky little tidbit floats into your thoughts. Some soldiers used crushed garlic as a morning breath freshener. Not exactly minty, but it probably did the trick, and it certainly cleared a path around them. You catch a whiff of someone who definitely followed that tradition. You take one polite step back. The camp gates stand tall in the distance, but nothing stirs beyond them. No traders approaching, no enemy scouts, not even an annoyed goat wandering too close. Just an empty, peaceful landscape stretching outward. These are the days soldiers secretly enjoy, even if they pretend to be bored out of their minds. No alarms, no horns, no sprinting in full gear while your commander yells about proper posture. Just quiet. As you walk along the Via Praetoria, a sleepy legionary jogs past you, attempting what might generously be called a morning exercise routine. He lasts about 7 seconds before slowing to a determined fast walk. You respect the ambition. Another man stands nearby practicing a very slow swing with his wooden sword. Not real training, just the "I should probably not forget how to do this" sort of movement. A pair of young recruits sit on overturned buckets near the cook tent. One is polishing his helmet with such intense focus that you suspect he's trying to see his future in the reflection. The other pokes idly at a loaf of last day's bread, debating whether it's edible or better suited as a weapon. He taps it against the table, It makes a sound suspiciously similar to knocking on a door. They both laugh, the soft, tired kind of laugh that only happens early in the morning. Nearby, a mule stares at nothing with the profound existential wisdom of animals who have accepted their fate. Its ears flick lazily, its tail swishes. You and the mule share a moment of mutual understanding. Mornings are rough. You keep walking, feeling the gentle rhythm of the day settle around you like a big wool cloak. Far above, a bird lets out one half-hearted chirp, and then apparently decides it's too early for singing. You get it. A couple of veterans stroll past trading jokes so dry they could be used as kindling. One says, "The only enemy we face today is boredom." The other replies, "Then we're already losing." They laugh, proud of themselves. You give them a small smile. Veterans love an audience. You wander to the edge of the camp and rest your hands on the cool wooden wall. The sun finally peeks fully over the horizon, casting warm light across the fields. You breathe it in. You don't have to march. You don't have to fight. You don't even have to pretend to look busy yet. It's just a quiet dawn in a quiet camp, far from any place where history expects excitement. And honestly, that's exactly the kind of morning that lets your mind drift, soften, and settle into the long, slow rhythm ahead. You ease further into the morning, letting the camp's sleepy rhythm pull you along until you find yourself drifting toward the barracks. Those long, low wooden buildings where off-duty legionaries gather to complain, joke, and practice the fine art of doing absolutely nothing with surprising discipline. The moment you push aside the heavy curtain hanging over the doorway, a wave of warm, lived-in air greets you, carrying a mix of leather oil, lingering smoke, and the unmistakable scent of a group of men who have not yet reached the emotional maturity required to clean up after themselves. You inhale it anyway. You're a soldier. This is basically your natural habitat. Inside, the lighting is soft and uneven, thin rays of sun slipping through cracks in the wooden walls. A few men are already awake, slouched on their beds, wrapped in cloaks, talking in those groggy half-whispers that fill every dorm room in history. You hear the tap-tap-tap of someone absent-mindedly drumming their fingers on a shield rim, creating a kind of lazy rhythm that suits the morning. No one's in a rush. No one wants to be. You find your usual spot on a bench and sit, stretching your legs as a couple of your tent mates acknowledge you with subtle nods. The kind that say, "We're awake, but let's not make a big deal about it." A centurion won't burst in for drills yet. The serious duties won't start until the sun climbs higher. For now, it's just you and the slow, comfortable murmur of bored men passing time. A pair of soldiers at the back argue quietly about whether they should finally fix the tear in their tent flap or continue pretending it's ventilation. One insists that it's letting in cold air, the other claims it's improving air quality. Historians still argue whether Roman soldiers actually cared about air quality, but in this room, the debate is absolutely raging. The compromise, as always, is that neither of them gets up to fix anything. Across the room, two younger recruits, new additions who haven't yet mastered the art of maintaining extremely low effort, are busy meticulously rearranging their gear. One polishes his Calighi sandals with obsessive devotion, rubbing every strap until it gleams like he thinks Caesar himself might appear at any moment to conduct a footwear inspection. The other is rebraiding the leather ties on his scabbard for the third time this morning. You watch him for a moment, wondering whether he's doing it for practical reasons or simply to keep his hands busy before his brain fully wakes up. A mainstream historical fact floats through your mind. Roman soldiers often spent more time maintaining their gear than actually fighting. The army valued discipline and readiness so much that a dull sword or frayed strap could earn a stern lecture, or worse, a creative punishment involving extra firewood duty. But today, with no inspections looming, the casual atmosphere in the barracks makes everything feel softer, slower, almost meditative. You lean back, letting the quiet chatter play out around you. One man tells a dry joke about a mule kicking his shield yesterday. A joke so mild it barely reaches the threshold of humour, but it still earns a few chuckles because mornings lower the bar for comedy. Another soldier mutters that he had a dream where he overslept, but in the dream he was also dreaming he overslept, which created an entire tiered system of anxiety. The room hums with small stories like that. Nothing dramatic, nothing heroic, just men being people, killing time. A quirky tidbit surfaces as someone starts humming under his breath. Roman soldiers sometimes composed simple marching songs to make long journeys feel shorter. These weren't grand poems or deeply meaningful ballads, more like rhythmic chants about food, weather, or their least favourite officer. You hear a few lines from a tune the veterans love, something about a shield so shiny you could cook an egg on it. Whether that's accurate or a joke, no one knows, but the rhythm is catchy enough to keep your toes tapping. One soldier sits cross-legged on his bunk, sewing a small rip in his tunic with slow, deliberate stitches. The needle glints in the soft light as he works. You watch him fold the fabric in a surprisingly gentle way for a man who can probably carry you and your gear at the same time. There's something soothing about the repetitive motion. Thread through cloth, pull, smooth, repeat. Moments like this remind you that even trained warriors get bored and fix their clothes like everyone else in history. Near the doorway, you catch a conversation drifting across the room. A pair of older legionaries debate whether the commander will assign ditch-clearing duty later, or whether the drills officer had been too tired yesterday to remember the chore list. They speak as if they're predicting the weather, calmly, thoughtfully, with just the right amount of dramatic dread. One even claims he saw the commander rub his forehead in that specific way, which apparently indicates an upcoming day of tedious labour. You're pretty sure he's making that up. Historians would definitely argue about the facial expressions of Roman commanders if they had enough data. You shift on the bench and glance around the barracks. The wooden beams above show scratches and little messages carved by soldiers before you. Names, symbols, crude animal drawings, all the important elements of ancient interior decoration. You take your time studying them. There's something charming about knowing 100 bored men all reached for the same creative outlet, carving whatever popped into their heads while avoiding eye contact with responsibility. A nearby soldier suddenly sighs dramatically, flopping onto his back on his cot as though defeated by the concept of existing. "Another quiet day," he moans. "The gods mock me." His friend tosses a rolled-up cloth at him in response. He catches it, barely. Eventually, someone begins retelling a story you've heard at least 30 times. The one about the soldier who tried to impress a local girl by claiming he could juggle 6 pilum javelins at once. You've heard every version. The one where he drops them instantly, the one where he accidentally spears a cooking pot, and the questionable version where he actually succeeds. No one agrees which is true, and honestly that's half the fun. The barracks remain warm, dim, and comfortably lifeless. You feel your shoulders loosen. There's no rush, no drill master barging in, no surprise orders, just slow conversation, soft laughter, and an unspoken agreement that everyone will finish waking up at their own pace. You let the steady rhythm of quiet chatter settle into your bones like a second pillow, absorbing its softness as the day stretches gently ahead. You drift back out of the barracks, feeling the warmth of that slow, sleepy chatter still clinging to you like a comfortable cloak. The camp has fully woken now, though fully is generous. Let's just say everyone is upright. Mostly. The smell of breakfast slides through the air, pulling you toward the morning ration line with the magnetic power of food that is technically edible. Your stomach growls in that very Roman way, meaning it expects something simple, warm, and probably a little bland, but dependable enough to get you through a quiet day. As you join the slow-moving line of legionaries, you hear the scrape and clatter of wooden bowls and spoons, the low rumble of men whispering half-awake jokes, and the dull thump of a cook banging the side of a pot to loosen a stubborn chunk of porridge. Breakfast in the Roman army is not glamorous. No one here is plating anything with herb sprigs. But there's comfort in its predictability. Steaming grain porridge, a hunk of yesterday's bread, a drizzle of olive oil if you're lucky, and a bit of wine watered down to the point that even your grandmother would call it too weak. You inch forward, watching steam rise lazily from the big bronze pot, curling upward into the cool morning air. It's thick, hearty, and has the charming texture of something that's been cooked long enough to forget it was once individual grains. A mainstream historical fact pops into your mind. Roman soldiers ate a lot of pulse, basically wheat or barley porridge, because it was cheap, easy to make, and kept them marching for miles. Even during calm periods like this, cooks prepared it in massive batches, stirring with paddles so big they look like they should be steering a ship rather than a breakfast pot. A soldier behind you yawns so wide, you're convinced he briefly glimpsed another dimension. He uses his shield as a makeshift pillow while he waits, leaning forward against it like a man who has mastered the art of conserving energy. Someone farther up sneezes loudly, startling a chicken wandering too close to the line. The chicken flaps away indignantly, because chickens always act like you've personally offended them. You shuffle forward another step. The man ahead scoops a finger into the air as if making an announcement. "I had a dream," he declares, "that this porridge had honey in it." The collective sound of unimpressed silence that follows could power a windmill. Someone pats him on the shoulder and says, "Dreams are meant to remain dreams, friend." When it's your turn, the cook, a burly man with arms like tree trunks and an apron that has seen too many lifetimes, gives you a look that says, "Don't complain, I'm doing my best." He ladles a generous scoop of porridge into your bowl. It lands with a wet thud, the universal sound of nutritious but emotionally unexciting. He tosses a crust of bread on top, then gestures toward the amphora of watered wine. You pour a small amount, watching the crimson liquid swirl into a pinkish hue that looks more like fruit-infused regret. As you step aside to eat, you find a shaded spot near the cook tent. The warmth of the bowl seeps into your hands. You take a slow bite. It's fine, maybe even slightly above average. There's something comforting about knowing breakfast will always be exactly this: thick porridge, coarse bread, quiet chatter, and the background hum of men who are slowly deciding whether today will be productive or just tolerable. A quirky tidbit from camp gossip drifts through your thoughts. Some soldiers believed eating garlic in the morning kept them healthy and more courageous, which is charming except for everyone who has to stand downwind from them. One soldier nearby crunches into a clove with way too much enthusiasm. You take a strategic step sideways. As you eat, you listen to the gentle hum around you, the clinking of spoons, the mumbling of men trading lazy comments, the occasional curse from the cook when someone tries to sneak a second scoop. You catch a conversation about last night's dice game, where apparently someone managed to lose all their spare tunic ties, 3 dates from their ration pack, and some intangible thing called dignity, which he insists wasn't worth much anyway. Across from you, a pair of soldiers dip their bread into the porridge, discussing whether the supply wagon will bring new olive oil, or if it'll be another batch that tastes like someone stored it too close to a mule. Historians still argue whether Roman supply quality varied dramatically, or if soldiers just complained professionally. The truth is probably both. You scan the camp while eating. Smoke rises from the cook tent, forming faint trails against the sky. A mule scratches itself on the corner post of a tent. A group of soldiers debates who should fetch more firewood, using increasingly creative arguments to avoid being chosen. The camp feels alive, but not with action, more like with a collective sigh. A veteran sits on a nearby stool, savouring his breakfast with the air of a man who has earned the right to take his time. He sees you looking and gives a half smile. "You know," he says between bites, "when I signed up, they promised me heroism, glory, and adventure." He pauses, gestures at his bowl. "Turns out they meant this." You laugh. He laughs. The porridge does not laugh, but it tries. A slight breeze moves through the camp, carrying scents of earth, grain, and the earliest hints of lunch preparations. The cook's thinking ahead, as they always do. You take another bite, feeling the warmth fill you from the inside. It's simple food, but it does its job. It settles your stomach, grounds your senses, and gives you that gentle nudge you need to move through the day's slow rhythm. When you finish, you wipe your bowl clean with the last piece of bread, savouring its chewy texture, even though it's closer to weaponizable hardness than soft bakery freshness. You rinse your bowl in a nearby water basin, drop it off at the designated table, and stretch your shoulders, feeling the gentle pull of muscles waking properly. The sun climbs a little higher. The camp feels steadier, more awake, ready in its own sleepy way for whatever boring duties await. And with breakfast sitting comfortably in your stomach, you're ready too. If ready means strolling lazily to the next quiet task of the day. You leave the breakfast area with that warm, heavy porridge settling in your stomach like a contented boulder, and you wander toward the weapons racks and gear benches where the day's most universally disliked ritual waits for you. Equipment checks. Not the dramatic kind where a commander looms overhead shouting about discipline and glory. No, this is the slow, boring, deeply mundane version. The let's stare at our sandals for 20 minutes and pretend to be productive version. The kind of task every legionary has done so many times that your hands move automatically, like you've been programmed by the gods to polish leather until the sun burns out. You sit on a low wooden stool, your gear piled around you, your helmet, your gladius, your scabbard, your lorica hamata chainmail, and your poor, overworked sandals that have definitely travelled more miles than they were designed for. The sun is still young, casting bright lines of light across the workshop area. Dust floats lazily in the air, dancing in the beams like tiny, bored spirits that have also been assigned to morning inspection duty. A couple of soldiers settle nearby, dropping their own gear with identical size. The universal morning soundtrack begins, metal clinking, buckles snapping, the rhythmic hiss of whetstones gliding against iron. You pick up your gladius first. Its blade catches the sunlight in a soft, warm glow. You run your thumb along the edge, not too hard. You're not trying to explain a self-inflicted cut to the medic today. It's still sharp enough. Good. That means fewer chores. As you gently drag your whetstone across the blade, you remember the mainstream historical fact that Roman soldiers spent far more time maintaining equipment than fighting. Battles were rare, polishing was eternal. The Romans believed a soldier's discipline showed in his gear, which is poetic until you realize it means hours of scrubbing chainmail until your fingers protest like tiny union workers demanding better conditions. A soldier across from you holds up his helmet to the light, squinting suspiciously at a minuscule patch of dull bronze. "Is this rust?" he asks dramatically, as if announcing a tragic death. His friend looks over, shakes his head and says, "No, that's just your reflection." The barracks erupts in easy laughter, not loud, but warm enough to make the chore feel less tedious. You turn to your chainmail next. The lorica hamata sits in your lap like a stubborn metal blanket. Every link catches the light as you work oil into the rings. You slip your fingers through the mesh, letting it dangle and shimmer. It's hypnotic in a slow ASMR kind of way, except heavier, sharper, and more likely to pinch a finger if you're not careful. You find a tiny bit of grit caught between two rings and pick it free with the satisfaction of a man who has wrestled with fate and won. As you work, you overhear the soldier beside you muttering about sandal straps. Again, Caligay straps have the lifespan of a fruit fly, and they love to snap at the least convenient time. He fiddles with his, which is fraying at the edges. The leather looks like it has personally survived 3 Punic Wars. You offer him a small piece of twine to reinforce it. He accepts with the solemn gratitude of a man saved from future humiliation. Historians still argue whether soldiers actually enjoyed tinkering with their sandals, or if it was just a socially acceptable way to avoid harder tasks. Judging by this man's focus, maybe it's both. A quirky tidbit slips into your memory. Some soldiers decorated their helmets with little scratched-in symbols, lucky marks, personal emblems, or small jokes. You spot one on a nearby helmet, a crude drawing of a pig wearing a laurel wreath. You point at it. The soldier grins. "Victory pig," he says proudly. "Carries me through every battle." You nod. Honestly, you've seen worse mascots. Another man complains that his scabbard has developed a squeak. He demonstrates, and sure enough, when he draws the gladius halfway, it emits the unmanliest sound you've ever heard. Like a mouse arguing with a door hinge. You bite your tongue to avoid laughing too loudly. "I cannot march into battle sounding like that," he groans, rubbing oil on the inside. "My dignity won't survive." Someone shouts from across the yard. "Your dignity didn't survive last night's card game either." More laughter. You check the rivets on your scabbard, making sure none are loose. A few taps with a small hammer sets them back into place. The rhythmic tink, tink, tink blends with the background hum of the camp. The scrape of metal, the soft grunts of effort, the occasional curse when someone finds a hidden crack in a buckle. All these sounds create a kind of calm, low-energy symphony unique to military mornings. Nearby, a pair of veterans inspect each other's shields. One complains that his wooden core is starting to warp from last week's rainstorm. The other shrugs and says, "Everything warps eventually. Look at Flavius. He's only 30 and already walks like he's 80. Flavius, overhearing this, limps dramatically across the yard just to prove their point. You test your shield next, running your hand along the curved surface. The paint is chipped, but the wood feels sturdy. You tap it lightly, a good solid sound. You adjust the leather straps, tightening them until they feel snug. A small tear near the edge catches your eye, but it's nothing a bit of wax and oil won't handle later. You wipe your hands on a cloth, feeling the thin layer of oil and dust cling to your skin. It's not glamorous work, but it's necessary. Quiet mornings like this keep your gear and your mind ready for whatever the future holds. And even though today holds nothing dramatic, the ritual still brings a weird kind of peace. You know every scratch on your equipment, every strap, every flaw, your gear, becomes a familiar friend. A final sunbeam glints across your polished helmet, reflecting a bright, warm flash. You hold it for a moment, watching your distorted face stretch across the bronze surface like a sleepy ghost. You smirk at yourself. Not bad, not perfect, but ready. Around you, soldiers begin finishing their checks. Gear is stacked, folded, and sorted. Everyone shifts from the microfocus of cleaning to the wider awareness of the day ahead. A centurion strolls by, nodding approval at the neatly arranged equipment. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't need to. A silent nod from a centurion is basically a standing ovation. You gather your gear, feeling that subtle satisfaction settle into your chest. Nothing exciting happened, but everything is in order. Quiet, simple, necessary. And with that done, you're ready to drift toward the next mind-numbingly calm part of your day. You sling your gear back into its tidy little pile and wander deeper into camp, where the real heartbeat of a quiet Roman day pulses. Not the dramatic stuff, not the thrilling drills, just the endless stream of tiny, mind-numbing odd jobs that keep the whole place functioning. If the Roman army were a machine, this would be the part where sand gets stuck in the gears and someone has to poke it out with a stick. And today, that someone is you, and also everyone else within arm's reach. The moment you step into the central work area, you see the slow choreography of unglamorous tasks already underway. A pair of soldiers bend over a shallow ditch, clearing debris with wooden shovels while complaining about the concept of dirt itself. One mutters, "We just cleaned this yesterday," and his partner replies, "Yes," and the earth rudely grew more earth. You feel a small sympathy nod form in your soul. Nearby, two men haul bundles of firewood toward the cook tent. The bundles are stacked so high that the carrier can barely see over them, leaving him to navigate through camp by pure faith and occasional swearing. A passing mule eyes him with what looks suspiciously like judgment. You give the mule a little nod because honestly, it has a point. Your assigned task today is still uncertain, but that's how these quiet days go. The Optio, the second in command with the perpetual aura of a man who hasn't sat down in 3 years, stands at the centre of the area with a wax tablet directing traffic like a sleep-deprived god of chores. He spots you and raises a finger, which could mean anything from "you're on wood duty" to "move that stack of rocks 3 steps to the left for no reason." You approach with cautious optimism. He scans his tablet, taps it with his stylus, and finally says, "You, latrine trench check." You exhale. Could have been worse. Could have been clean soot off the bathhouse ceiling again. You nod respectfully, even though your internal monologue says, "Marvellous. Truly my destiny." You trudge toward the edge of camp, where the latrine trench lies, a long wooden platform over a dugout channel. The morning sun warms the air, but the smell, well, it's impressively awful. You breathe through your mouth, like every soldier who has ever been assigned this glamorous chore. The trench looks fine today. No clogs, no structural problems, no escaping horrors. Good. Your inspection is quick. You toss in a bit of fresh ash to help neutralize the smell, then walk away like a hero returning from a brave and noble quest. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Roman military latrines were surprisingly advanced, often featuring running water channels beneath them to keep things moving. Small comforts in a world of large smells. As you stroll back toward the work zone, another soldier waves you over to help with the water barrels. They need to be rolled to the storage tent for refilling. Rolling barrels sounds easy until you attempt it and realize they have all the grace of drunken elephants. You brace your hands on one and begin pushing. The barrel wobbles violently. You steady it. It rolls 2 feet. It wobbles again. You swear softly. This is the Roman army, conquerors of nations, humble servants of unstable barrels. A soldier pushes another barrel beside you, grunting. Historians still argue whether we're trained for battle or trained for chores, he mutters. You laugh, because he's not wrong. Between ditch digging, firewood hauling, gear polishing, and trench checking, the battles almost feel like special events. Very rare, very stressful special events. Once the barrels are finally in place, your new co-worker claps you on the shoulder and grins. Not bad, only took half the day. It took maybe 8 minutes. but exaggerating misery is practically a bonding ritual here. Across the yard, another group of soldiers is engaged in the world's most thrilling task, sorting rocks. Not important rocks, not useful rocks, just rocks that someone higher up decided must be moved, organised, or admired. You watch them debate which pile is the official pile. One points dramatically and declares, "This is the good pile." No one knows what that means, but everyone pretends to. You drift next to a pair of men assigned to repairing a section of fence. They work slowly, rhythmically, one holding wooden stakes while the other drives them into the ground with a mallet. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The repetitive sound becomes oddly soothing, almost hypnotic in its simplicity. The worker pauses, wipes sweat from his brow and says, "You think we'll get extra rations for this?" His partner answers without looking up, "We'll get extra splinters." You stifle a grin. You glance toward the stables, where a soldier is brushing down a mule that clearly did not consent to the situation. The mule flicks its ears, shifts its weight, and emits a low groan that translates roughly to, "I hate mornings." The soldier pats its side sympathetically. "Me too," he whispers. You keep walking before the mule recruits you for emotional support. Farther along, you encounter a trio of young recruits sweeping the main road with long reed brooms. They sweep with the seriousness of men trying to impress an invisible emperor. Dust rises around them, creating a soft cloud that makes them look like ghosts of bad decisions. One stops sweeping, leans on his broom and says, "If Caesar himself walked by right now, I'd pretend this was exactly what I wanted to be doing." The others nod. You nod. Everyone understands the art of pretending chores are meaningful. As you continue your slow walk, you pass by a group tasked with counting nails. Yes, counting nails. One soldier sighs dramatically as he sorts them into piles. 132, 133. Another man taps him on the shoulder, causing him to lose count. The look he gives afterward deeply conveys the phrase, "I will haunt you after death." You wisely keep moving. Another detail catches your eye. A soldier sketching lines on a wooden board to prep for a minor repair. His stylus scratches lightly, producing thin grooves. His tongue sticks out in concentration. He's creating what might be the least artistic masterpiece in Roman history, a replacement flap for a supply box. Still, he seems proud. A small breeze rustles across the camp, carrying the scent of sawdust, sweat, leather, and that faint underlying smell of soldierly boredom. You breathe it in, it's strangely comforting. This is the army's real secret. While the world imagines you charging into glory, most of your time is spent doing these quiet, oddly tender tasks that keep everything standing. Finally, your optio signals that the major chores are done, for now. A wave of subtle relief passes through the men. Chore time may return later, but for the moment, you're free to wander again, stretching your arms, shaking off the dust, and feeling that gentle sluggishness settle back into your bones. The day rolls on, uneventful and wonderfully dull. With the chores finally behind you, at least until someone remembers another ditch, or a barrel, or a mysteriously urgent rock, you slip away from the bustle and make your way toward one of the quieter corners of camp. A place where activity slows to a soft hum. A place where even time seems to sigh and lean back. The writing benches. This is where soldiers come when the noise of camp life becomes too much, or when they feel that gentle tug of homesickness, or when they simply want an excuse to sit for an hour without being assigned to shovel-related suffering. You approach one of the low wooden tables, its surface scratched with countless grooves from styluses and elbows and long days. You settle onto a bench, exhaling in the satisfied way only someone who's avoided being roped into more work can. A small stack of wax tablets sits at the centre, along with a few styluses, thin metal rods with flat ends for smoothing and pointed ends for writing. You choose a tablet at random and smooth the surface with your thumb, feeling the faint stickiness of warmed wax. Writing on these is slow, meditative, and incredibly satisfying, like carving thoughts into butter. You pick up a stylus which has just the right amount of weight to make you feel marginally smarter than you are. Around you, a few other soldiers have gathered. Some are already writing, heads bent, brows furrowed in that particular blend of concentration and boredom. Others are staring at blank tablets like the greatest battle of their life is currently taking place between them and the concept of forming words. You take a breath. let your mind drift, and begin scratching the first lines of a letter home. The stylus whispers across the wax, "I am well." The camp is peaceful. The weather is warm today. It starts like every letter starts, because Roman soldiers were nothing if not consistent. You write slowly, each word forming with the deliberate heaviness of someone who knows this message might take weeks to reach its destination, if it arrives at all. Couriers aren't exactly running express same-day delivery out here. A mainstream historical fact pops into your mind. Literacy in the Roman army was surprisingly common, not universal, but far more widespread than most ancient societies. Because the army loved records, reports, and endless lists, soldiers often picked up reading and writing just by existing around all the paperwork. The army wasn't just a fighting machine, it was also a mobile bureaucracy, powered by men who could scratch out letters to loved ones or write receipts for grain deliveries. Romance. You pause your writing to glance around. On the other bench, a young recruit frowns aggressively at his tablet, as if intimidation alone will make the right words appear. He sighs, dips his stylus, scratches one line, then erases it with the flat end. He repeats this at least 5 times. Finally, he leans toward you and whispers, "How do you write? I miss your cooking," without sounding like a child. You grin and offer him a phrase. He nods solemnly, as if you've just handed him the wisdom of Jupiter himself. Nearby, 2 soldiers quietly compare letters from home they received last week. One beams with pride, showing off a tiny drawing his kid apparently made. A strange little stick figure with a helmet 3 times too big. "That's me," he says, his smile softening his whole face. His friend claps his shoulder. "They captured your likeness," he says dryly. The man laughs, folds the letter carefully and tucks it into a pouch like it's treasure. You return to your own writing, carving out a few more lines about camp life. The good parts, anyway. You leave out the smell of the latrine trench and the incident with the barrel that rolled into someone's tent. Instead, you mention the warm sun, the camaraderie, the quiet mornings. It's not dishonest, it's just curated. A quirky tidbit enters your thoughts as you pause. Some soldiers decorated their wax tablets with tiny carvings or etched borders, little flourishes, personal touches. One man beside you has done exactly that, carving a neat little border of laurel leaves around his writing surface. Does it make the letter clearer? No. Does it make the tablet unmistakably his? Absolutely. He leans over and proudly informs you, "My tablet is fancier than the centurion's." You nod. It definitely is. At the far end of the table, another soldier mutters to himself as he writes. He's recounting a long story about a meal he once had in Syria, involving a goat, 3 onions, and an extremely confused merchant. You try not to laugh, but when he erases an entire paragraph because he can't remember if the goat was actually there or just implied, you lose composure completely. He shrugs and starts over. Historians still argue whether soldiers accurately described their adventures in letters or exaggerated wildly to stay interesting. Judging by this man, exaggeration is a proud tradition. You return to your letter and add a few final lines. You talk about your health, your unit, the calm days. You promise to write again soon. You sign it with your name, slowly, carefully, pressing each curve of each letter into the wax so it looks clean and even. When you're done, you close the tablet gently and tie its little string. The act of finishing feels satisfying in a way chores never do. Letters feel like tiny lifelines to the outside world, threads that tether you to home, to memories, to the promise of eventually returning. You lean back, stretching your shoulders, letting the quiet energy of the writing bench settle over you. A soft breeze carries the scent of dust and olive oil. The sun warms your face, and for a moment, the entire camp hums with a peaceful silence, punctuated only by the scratch of styluses and the occasional sniffle from someone pretending they're not emotional. You place your letter with the outgoing pile, knowing it might travel farther than you will this month, and as you rise from the bench you feel a little lighter, ready to drift into the next quiet pocket of this slow, unhurried day. You wander away from the writing benches, feeling that faint, pleasant heaviness that always lingers after you've poured a bit of your heart into wax. Your mind drifts as you stroll through camp, letting the soft rhythms of the day fold around you. The morning is fully awake now, not lively, not loud, just humming with that particular brand of low-energy soldier existence where everyone is alert enough to talk but too tired to do anything ambitious. And that is exactly when the rumours begin to swirl. You don't need a map or a guide to find them. All you have to do is walk toward the sound of half-whispered voices, overlapping stories, and the unmistakable tone of men who desperately need hobbies. You drift into a cluster of soldiers lounging near a stack of supply crates, their postures relaxed, their conversations looping with the lazy confidence of people who know nobody in charge is listening closely. A soldier named Varro, who has the unique skill of speaking with absolute authority about things he definitely does not understand, is in the middle of a dramatic retelling. And then the standard bearer says to him, "If you don't stop snoring like that, the gods themselves will shove a spear down your throat." The group erupts into soft laughter. You raise an eyebrow. You know the standard bearer. You cannot imagine him saying something that poetic on his best day. Rumours in a Roman camp don't spread. They seep. They ooze. They wander around like stray dogs looking for a meal. And today, it seems, they have congregated in this very spot. You take a seat on one of the crates, leaning your elbows on your knees as Varro launches into another story. This one involves a soldier allegedly spotting a barbarian spy disguised as a travelling pot seller. He had a suspiciously good collection of pots, Varro insists, tapping his nose like that makes it true. A soldier nearby mutters, "Historians still argue whether Varro's brain operates on wine fumes or wishful thinking." You suppress a laugh. The man beside you, Alias, nudges your shoulder. "Did you hear the one about the missing mule?" he asks, eyes wide with the earnest excitement of a man about to reveal something wonderfully pointless. You shake your head. "You have not heard about the missing mule." "Congratulations," he says with his expression. "You're about to hear the greatest story ever told." He leans closer. "So apparently one of the mules wandered off at night, and when they found it, it had somehow gotten into the grain store." He waits dramatically. You wait with equal drama. "And it ate so much," he continues, "that the medics had to roll it back out." You blink. Roll it, he repeats, dead serious. Across the group, someone snorts in disbelief. Someone else mutters, "Poor beast." Is the story true? Probably not. Does it matter? Absolutely not. Rumours aren't meant to be accurate. They're meant to be entertaining. And in a world where chores and training stretch endlessly, entertainment is priceless. A trio of soldiers nearby is engaged in a passionate debate about whether the legate's nephew has arrived in camp. One claims he saw him near the command tent, looking nervous. Another swears he overheard two officers mentioning a young noble visiting soon. The third insists there is no nephew. The legate is famously childless, and everyone else is an idiot. You listen quietly, enjoying the absolute certainty with which each man presents his fabricated evidence. A quirky little tidbit pops into your mind. Some Roman units were so rumour-prone that commanders created official announcements specifically to counter wild stories soldiers invented. It's comforting to know that gossip has always been the true universal language of humankind. From the other side of the group you catch fragments of another conversation. Two veterans discussing a centurion's love life with the solemnity of priests interpreting omens. "He was smiling yesterday," one says. "He never smiles." The other nods gravely. "He must be in love." A third soldier cuts in. "He smiled because someone gave him extra olives at dinner." The veterans dismiss him entirely. Love is a far better explanation. As the wind shifts, you hear another cluster of men whispering about a rumour that's been drifting around camp all week. The possibility of being moved to a new posting soon, maybe farther inland, maybe closer to the coast, maybe nowhere at all. The details are fuzzy, constantly changing, often contradictory. But the emotional result, mild anticipation mixed with mild dread, remains the same. You sit back and let the voices wash over you, soft and overlapping like waves. Soldiers complain, exaggerate, speculate, and invent. Stories twist into shapes that make no sense. Truth dissolves. Nobody corrects anyone. That's the beauty of gossip. It doesn't need to be real to be bonding. A young recruit suddenly gasps. "I heard," he whispers loudly, "that the cook is planning fish for dinner." Everyone freezes. "Fish? Dinner? Here?" Alias narrows his eyes. "You're lying." "No, I swear on Jupiter's eyebrows." "That is not an acceptable oath," Varro declares. "Fish hasn't been seen in this camp since the last festival. And it wasn't even good fish," someone adds. Historians still argue whether that was fish or a culinary experiment gone wrong, another mutters. The entire group falls into a heated but gentle argument about the possibility of fish suddenly appearing. The discussion becomes so detailed that it borders on absurd. Supply routes, river proximity, fishing season, the cook's personal vendettas. It is somehow both pointless and deeply engaging. You lean back, letting the sun warm your shoulders as the voices braid themselves into a tapestry of mild absurdity. Rumours swirl, debates fail to resolve, stories contradict each other until they tie themselves in knots, and you sit there drifting between amusement and contentment. This is what quiet days are made of. Not grand triumphs, not noble deeds, but soft-spoken chaos, harmless speculation, and the universal human joy of a good, ridiculous story told with absolute sincerity. Eventually the gossip thins as men disperse for the next slow stretch of the day. You rise, stretching your back, and wander off, carrying with you the comfortable noise of a camp full of stories that may never be true, but will always be entertaining. You leave the rumour cluster behind, feeling your mind pleasantly fogged from the swirl of questionable stories. The camp feels calmer now, quieter, as the sun climbs and settles into that warm, steady glow that makes everyone just a little lazier. You wander toward the training field, not the intense one where centurions shout until their voices crack, but the smaller practice area where soldiers perform what might generously be called march drills, or, more accurately, march drills without any actual marching. You arrive just as a group of legionaries is lining up, moving with the enthusiasm of sloths on holiday. The Optio overseeing this practice stands with his hands clasped behind his back, posture perfect, expression carved from pure judgment. And yet even he can't muster the energy to bark full-volume commands this morning. His voice floats across the field like a bored breeze. Form up. Yes, straighter. No, straighter. Cassius, that's not straight. That's a parabola. You stand to the side, joining the cluster of soldiers waiting their turn. A soft crunch sounds beneath your sandals as you shift your weight. Dust rises lazily, swirling in the sunlight. You stretch your shoulders and shake out your legs, already preparing for the most repetitive part of the day. March drills, on days like this, are less about actually marching anywhere, and more about maintaining the rhythm, posture, and coordination that keeps the legion moving like a single creature. You watch as the first row begins stepping in place, left, right, hands gripping imaginary shields, breathing at a slow, measured pace. It would look majestic if it weren't all happening at one spot. A mainstream historical fact crosses your mind. Roman soldiers practiced marching constantly, not for fun, clearly, but because the legion's terrifying battlefield effectiveness depended on perfect formation movement. Long marches were their superpower, but on calm days, you get the diet version, marching without moving. Like a military treadmill, but even less exciting. A soldier next to you whispers under his breath, "Why are we marching in place? Are we preparing to impress worms?" You chuckle softly. The man in front of you overhears and adds, "If we march any slower, we'll start moving backward through time." The Optio snaps his gaze toward the group, sensing humour like a hawk senses mice. Everyone immediately straightens, faces forward, and pretends this is their favourite activity. Your group is called Next. You step into formation, sliding into your place between two soldiers you know well. A tall, laconic veteran who never speaks unless absolutely necessary, and a shorter recruit who speaks even when absolutely unnecessary. The recruit glances over at you with wide eyes. Do we actually march nowhere?" he asks. You nod. His expression suggests he is reassessing every life choice that led to this moment. The commands come slowly. Ready, step, left, right, left, right. The field fills with the soft, synchronized thud of dozens of sandals hitting the ground in place. The rhythm is steady, hypnotic, almost meditative, if meditation involved mild foot pain and the knowledge that someone will yell at you if your elbows move too much. You feel your legs warming. The repetitive motion settles into your muscles. It's not strenuous, but after a while, the monotony becomes its own kind of challenge. Your mind wanders. Your thoughts drift like clouds. What's for lunch? Where did that mule wander off to yesterday? Why does the recruit in front of you swing his arms like he's conducting an invisible orchestra? The Optio paces along the line. He stops in front of one soldier and adjusts his elbow by exactly 3 centimeters. Better, he mutters. He moves to another and tilts the man's chin upward 1/2 degree. Confidence, he says. You begin to suspect he has a personal vendetta against geometry and is punishing angles. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your memory. Some Roman generals believed perfect marching could intimidate enemies before a battle even began. The idea of hundreds of soldiers marching in flawless unison, hearing the thunder of coordinated footsteps. Yeah, that would rattle anyone. You're just trying not to yawn. Your feet continue the slow cadence. You look left. You look right. Everyone's faces have the same expression, mild regret mixed with resigned acceptance. A soldier behind you mutters, "Historians still argue whether this is training or a creative form of punishment." The man next to him responds, "If it is punishment, I confess to everything." The Optio calls out again, "Shields up!" You lift your imaginary shield. Your arm moves instinctively even though the weight of the real wooden slab isn't there. Your bicep appreciates the break. Advance, without advancing. You all take exaggerated forward steps that move you exactly 0 inches. The motion feels like one of those bizarre interpretive dance routines you'd see performed by people much more flexible than anyone in this camp. Hold! Everyone freezes, arms stiff, legs slightly bent. A few seconds pass, a few more. Someone's knee pops audibly. The recruit beside you whispers, "Why does it feel harder to stand still than to move?" You nod again. He sighs dramatically. When the Optio finally calls for a break, the formation dissolves like sugar in warm water. Soldiers rub their calves, shake out their legs, and stretch their backs with groans that sound centuries old. One man collapses onto the grass like he's reenacting a tragic myth. Another fans himself with an imaginary fan. You pat your thighs, acknowledging their heroic endurance. As you step aside for the next group, you listen to the background chatter. My left foot is officially mad at me. I forgot which foot was left halfway through. I think my toes went on strike. You smile, letting the faint breeze cool your face. The drills may be dull, but there's something strangely grounding about them. The repetition, the rhythm, the feeling of being one small part of a larger unit. Even without marching anywhere, you feel connected to the Legion's heartbeat. You sit on a nearby log, resting your hands on your knees as you watch the next formation begin its stationary journey to nowhere. The Optio resumes his slow pacing, adjusting angles and postures with tedious precision. The soldiers move with synchronized reluctance. The sun rests high above now, casting short shadows behind you. The day grows warmer, the air thicker, the camp quieter. You exhale, stretching your arms, feeling the lazy calm seep back in. And when your legs finally stop tingling, you push yourself upright again, ready to wander off toward the next quiet ritual of this beautifully uneventful day. You leave the march, but not marching field, with your legs humming that pleasant little vibration that only comes from performing a completely pointless workout. The camp feels quieter now, like everyone has collectively decided to lower the volume of existence by about 30%. You stretch your shoulders, roll your neck, and make your way toward the weapon training yard. Another calm corner of camp where the day moves slowly, like warm honey sliding down a spoon. This isn't the intense training ground where centurions force you to sprint while shouting about valor and proper elbow rotation. No, this is the mellow practice zone, where soldiers go to run through slow, careful movements with their gladius. The kind of training that's more about muscle memory than adrenaline, more meditation than war. You step onto the packed dirt, feeling how the ground gives slightly beneath your sandals. The sun has warmed it just enough to feel comforting. A few soldiers are already there, each absorbed in their own quiet routine. One man performs a slow sequence of cuts, his body moving with steady precision. Another gently thrusts at an invisible target, pausing after each motion, as if evaluating the very concept of stabbing. A third stands completely still, eyes closed, holding his wooden practice sword like he's communing with the gods of sharp objects. You grab a wooden gladius from the rack. It feels lighter than your real one, smoother, its handle. Worn from countless hands, you give it a few test swings. The air whispers as the blade passes through it. You relax into the familiar rhythm. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Roman soldiers trained with wooden swords heavier than their metal ones to build strength and endurance. On days like this, though, most of the weight you feel isn't physical, it's mental. A kind of gentle focus that encourages you to move deliberately rather than forcefully. You take your stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees soft, shoulders relaxed. You inhale slowly and begin a sequence. Downward cut, left sweep, right sweep, thrust, upward cut. The motions feel smooth, almost comforting. It's like performing a slow dance with a partner who never steps on your toes or asks questions about your personal life. Around you, the quiet training becomes almost musical. The soft tap of sandals shifting in the dirt, the occasional grunt of mild effort, the short, controlled exhale of a practiced thrust. It's strangely soothing, an ASMR battlefield that puts no one in danger. A soldier beside you pauses mid-swing and shakes his wrist. "I think my arm's asleep," he mutters. Another replies without turning, "Your arm is just bored." You smile silently, adjusting your grip. The wooden hilt feels warm against your palm. You continue practicing, focusing on refining each step. Forward lunge, recover, guard position, repeat. You imagine an opponent. Not a fierce barbarian, not a towering warrior, just a hypothetical training dummy who stands there politely while you perfect your angles. This fight, unlike real ones, is calm, predictable, therapeutic. A quirky tidbit floats into your memory. Some soldiers carved small symbols into their practice swords. Nothing fancy, just little marks to help them identify their own training weapons, or to bring a touch of personality to an otherwise identical tool. You glance at yours and notice a tiny carving near the handle. A stick figure horse, a sunburst, or a badly drawn chicken. Hard to say. Whatever it is, it gives your practice blade a bit of charm. As you work through your patterns, your thoughts wander. You remember the gossip you heard earlier, which somehow seems funnier now that your brain is settled into a peaceful rhythm. You picture the mule rolling out of the grain store. You picture the supposed barbarian pot seller. Your gladius sweeps through the air in a slow arc. You exhale. Across the yard, two soldiers practice shield and sword drills with quiet determination. Their movements are synchronized, controlled, almost elegant. They advance and retreat in a steady pattern. One stumbles slightly, the other murmurs, "Too far forward." They adjust, repeat, refine. Historians still argue whether Roman training owed its efficiency to repetition or sheer stubbornness. Watching these two, you suspect it was both. You take a short break, stretching your arms overhead. A faint breeze brushes your face, carrying the warm scent of dust and oiled leather. The sun drapes itself across your shoulders. The day feels timeless, like you've slipped into one long, lazy afternoon that stretches beyond the horizon. You look over and spot a veteran sitting cross-legged, polishing his real gladius with slow, careful strokes. He glances at you, nods approvingly and says, "Slow is smooth, smooth is fast." You've heard him say that before. You're pretty sure he'll say it again tomorrow, but he's right, and you take the advice to heart. You return to your routine, slow step forward, controlled thrust, reset, another step, another thrust. You feel the muscles in your shoulders warming, not burning, just easing into the work like they're waking from a nap. Your breathing syncs with your motions. Your mind drifts into a soft haze. Nearby, the recruit from earlier tries to mimic your sequence. His movements are jerky, his thrusts too enthusiastic, his footwork slightly chaotic. After a few attempts, he exhales dramatically and says, "I think my body's broken." A soldier walking past pats him on the shoulder. "Give it time," he says. "You'll get less terrible eventually." The recruit brightens a little. "Eventually?" "Maybe," the soldier replies. You grin to yourself and continue practicing. After several more minutes of quiet drills, you lower your wooden sword and let your arms hang loose. Your breathing is deep, steady. Your muscles feel pleasantly tired. The yard around you has taken on that gentle feel of late morning. Slow, warm, content. You place the wooden gladius back on the rack, running your hand along its smooth surface one last time. It feels like finishing a meditation session. Your mind is clearer, your body softer, your thoughts quieter. You take one last look at the yard. Soldiers moving slowly, calmly, deliberately. and you feel the day stretch ahead again, soft and uneventful. And with that, you step away from the field, ready to meander toward the next quiet corner of this peaceful, wonderfully boring day. You wander away from the weapon yard, your arms still humming with that pleasant, slow-burn warmth that comes from gentle practice rather than genuine exertion. The camp settles into its late-morning lull, where the sun shines bright but not harsh, and everyone moves with the rhythmic half-energy of men who've accepted that productivity is optional today. Your stomach feels steady, your mind feels calm, and then nature calls, not loudly, not urgently. Just with that familiar, gentle nudge that every Roman soldier knows too well, the latrines await. You sigh softly, partly because this is inevitable, and partly because visiting the latrines is an experience of its own. So you make your way toward the far edge of the camp where the communal toilets sit, a long wooden structure built over a trench with flowing water beneath it. Nothing glamorous, nothing private, but surprisingly, social. As you approach, you hear the unmistakable mix of low voices, occasional coughs, and a single man humming in a tone that suggests he's trying to distract himself from reality. You push aside the curtain and step inside. The latrines are exactly as you expect. A row of stone or wooden slabs with circular openings, evenly spaced like seats in a very awkward theatre. You take your place, settling onto the smooth surface. The air is thick with the earthy scent of the trench below, and the occasional waft of vinegar from a bucket of cleaning liquid. Not pleasant, but manageable. Roman soldiers are built for discomfort. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your mind. Roman latrines were communal, not merely by design, but by cultural expectation. Privacy wasn't really a thing. Soldiers sat elbow to elbow, conducting their business while discussing everything from food rations to military rumours to the exact shape of that one cloud yesterday. Hygiene? Surprisingly good for the era. Running water beneath the seats. Sponge sticks. Communal. Try not to think too hard about that. Regular ash cleaning. Simple, effective, mildly horrifying. You sit quietly for a moment, letting your eyes adjust to the dim. A soldier on your right nods casually. Morning, he says, as if you've just met at the bathhouse and not on two planks over a sewage channel. Morning, you reply with equal casualness. This is the unspoken rule here. Act normal. Pretend everything is fine. Don't acknowledge the sounds. On your left, a man with a thick beard flips through a small wax tablet. I'm rewriting the letter I messed up earlier, he says. Figured I'd multitask. You blink. That's one way to do it. He notices your look and shrugs. Waste no time, he says, with the confidence of someone who absolutely should waste time. A soldier farther down the row sighs dramatically. My calves are still angry at me from the marching drill, he mutters. Another agrees. My calves are suing me for emotional damage. You bite your lip to keep from laughing. The latrines, it turns out, might be the best comedy club in the entire camp. A quirky tidbit bubbles up from your memory. Some ancient writers mentioned that gossip in the latrines was so normal that important news sometimes spread faster here than anywhere else, which makes sense. Something about sitting like this makes men talk. Perhaps because everyone is too vulnerable to lie convincingly. You lean back slightly, adjusting your cloak so it doesn't brush anything it shouldn't. You hear the gentle trickle of the water channel beneath you, a surprisingly soothing sound if you ignore where it's coming from. A soft breeze drifts through the slatted window, carrying with it the warmth of the day and a faint hint of cooking herbs from the nearby kitchen tent. One soldier clears his throat theatrically. Did anyone else hear that the commander is thinking about moving the camp closer to the river? Impossible, someone replies. No, I heard it from Varro's cousin's friend. A groan ripples through the latrine. If it comes from Varro, it's probably a dream he had after too much wine, another says. Historians still argue whether Varro has ever been right about anything, adds a voice near the door. A chorus of agreements and chuckles follows. You finish your business and reach for the sponge stick. It sits in a shallow trough of salt water and vinegar. You try not to think about how many other people have used it today. You do what needs to be done, then place it back as gently as someone handling a cursed artifact. To your right, the soldier with the wax tablet suddenly stops writing. Does anyone remember how to spell prosperity? He asks. 4 voices answer at once, with 4 different spellings. He sighs. I'll just say good things. You stand, adjusting your tunic, and step aside to wash your hands in the small basin of clean water placed near the exit. You splash the cool water over your palms and forearms, enjoying the simple refreshment. The soldier beside you does the same, then shakes the excess water off with dramatic flair. Outside, the sunlight feels 10 times brighter after the dim shade of the latrine. You inhale deeply. Fresh air never tasted so good. A gentle breeze flows past, carrying the soft scent of pine and cooking bread. You let it wash over you like a cleansing ritual. You glance back at the latrine curtain. Behind it, you hear someone say, "If the cook serves fish tonight, I swear that's an omen." Another replies, "The only omen is how bad the fish will smell." You smile and begin walking back toward the center of camp, lighter in body and mind. The day stretches ahead, warm and unhurried. Another calm task awaits, but for now you simply enjoy the breeze, the sunlight, and the quiet hum of a legionary's everyday life. And honestly, few things in life feel as satisfying as stepping out of the latrine into a peaceful, uneventful day. You stroll, away from the latrines feeling like a man reborn, lighter, refreshed, and very certain that fresh air is one of humanity's greatest inventions. The camp hums with its midday rhythm now, that gentle lull where the sun hangs just high enough to persuade everyone to slow down. It's the perfect time to drift toward one of the quieter corners of camp, the workshop. If the Roman camp were a living organism, the workshop would be its hands, constantly fixing, patching, carving, shaping, and mending. You step inside and are greeted by a warm mix of wood dust, metallic tang, and hot leather. The scent is oddly comforting, like the smell of productivity but without the urgency. The workshop isn't frantic, it's methodical, calm, almost sleepy. A large wooden awning provides shade, and beneath it benches are covered with tools, chisels, scrapers, awls, clamps, tiny hammers, and a collection of nails that refuses to stay sorted no matter how many times soldiers swear they've finally fixed the nail situation. Several men are already at work, moving slowly but with the kind of focus only boredom can produce. One is carving a fresh spear shaft, shaving thin curls of wood that fall like pale ribbons to the ground. Another patches the corner of a shield, pressing new leather into place with careful fingers, humming an off-key tune that somehow fits perfectly with the dusty atmosphere. You find an open space at a long table and sit, letting your fingers rest on a block of unfinished wood. Your task today? Helping repair a stack of damaged shields. Nothing complex, nothing glamorous, just patching splits, reinforcing rims, and brushing fresh resin over cracked surfaces. You pick up a half-finished shield, feeling the weight of it. Solid wood, slightly warped from last week's rain. You tap the rim lightly, hollow on one side. You'll need to reinforce that. You grab a small chisel and begin smoothing the damaged section, the tool scraping softly across the wood in rhythmic strokes. It's slow work, but it gives your brain permission to wander lazily. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your thoughts. Roman soldiers often doubled as craftsmen. They were expected to know basic carpentry, leatherwork, metal repair, and even small-scale engineering. The army wanted self-sufficient units that could build, fix, and rebuild whatever they needed without waiting for outside help. If something broke, soldiers fixed it. If something needed building, soldiers built it. The legion was a travelling toolbox. To your right, a thin, serious-looking man is stitching a tear in a leather harness. He pulls the thread tight, then inspects it like a jeweller examining a precious gem. "Perfect," he mutters, then the thread snaps. "Less perfect," he adds. Across the room, two soldiers argue quietly about the best wood for spear shafts. "Yew is stronger," one insists. "Ash is more flexible," the other replies. A third man leans over and says, "Historians still argue about this, you know." They all pause, stare at him, and then burst into laughter. You brush resin along the shield rim, watching it soak into the grain. The smell is sharp, earthy, familiar. It reminds you of countless other afternoons spent repairing gear, days that blurred together in warm, dusty harmony. You press a strip of new leather into the resin, smoothing it with careful strokes. The material molds into place under your fingers, pliable and warm from the sun. A veteran nearby works on a javelin tip. He taps the iron with a tiny hammer, creating soft, rhythmic ting-ting-ting sounds that echo gently across the workshop. His face is relaxed, his movements slow and practiced. He looks up briefly and says, Slow hands make strong points. You nod, appreciating both the wisdom and the unintentional innuendo. At the far end of the workshop, a young recruit tries to carve a straight plank. He is failing spectacularly. The plank now has the shape of a depressed banana. He stares at it, defeated. "Why does it curve?" he asks aloud. A passing soldier shrugs. Maybe it's trying to escape. You grin as the recruit mutters something about the gods cursing him with crooked lumber. Another quirky tidbit bubbles up in your memory. Some soldiers carved little decorations into the inside of their shields. Simple designs, initials, tiny animal figures. You flip your shield over and find a small carving near the hand grip. A surprisingly detailed fish with big eyes and a smug smile. You trace it lightly with your thumb. Someone, sometime, had a sense of humour. The workshop feels warmer now as the sun leans into the afternoon. Sweat gathers lightly at your temples, but the shade keeps you comfortable. The soft sounds of work, wood scraping, leather stretching, metal tapping, blend together into a strangely soothing atmosphere. You can see why soldiers like spending time here. It's peaceful, grounded. Something about making or fixing things with your hands pulls you into the present moment. A soldier next to you sighs dramatically as he tries to bend a metal strap. "If this strap bends one more time in the wrong direction," he warns, "I will bend in half out of spite." His friend pats his shoulder gently. "Save your strength. We still need your back to carry things later." You finish reinforcing your shield, feeling the smoothness of the newly repaired rim. It's sturdy again, ready for drills, marching, or the rare possibility of actual combat. You place it gently on the drying rack and grab a broken spear shaft next. As you shave the wood into a clean, straight line, you notice how your mind quiets. No gossip, no marching, no orders, just the soft rasp of the chisel and the warm afternoon breeze slipping through the workshop awning. You settle deeper into the rhythm. By the time you finish the spear, a small pile of wood shavings curls around your feet. They glow faintly in the sunlight like tiny, curled feathers. You brush them aside and lean back, stretching your shoulders with a satisfied exhale. Around you, the workshop continues its slow, steady heartbeat. Men work, men talk softly, tools clink, dust drifts. Time stretches gently. You wipe your hands on a cloth, feeling the mixture of resin, sweat, and wood fibers cling to your skin. It's not glamorous, but it's honest, real, earned, and in its own quiet way, deeply calming. You step out from under the awning, blinking as the bright sun hits your face. The camp hums softly, like a world that has settled comfortably into the afternoon. And you drift forward again, ready to slip into the next peaceful corner of this wonderfully uneventful day. You leave the workshop with the warm smell of resin still clinging faintly to your hands, and as you walk back into the sunlight, you can feel the afternoon settling gently over the camp, like a heavy but soft blanket. This is the quietest stretch of the day. Too early for dinner, too late for morning chores, and just hot enough that no sane centurion would dare call for anything that involves real effort, which means the soldiers now slide naturally into the sacred Roman tradition of doing absolutely nothing and doing it with remarkable enthusiasm. You wander toward a shady patch of open ground near the barracks, where several men are already arranged in various positions of elegant laziness. Some recline on their cloaks, ankles crossed, hands behind their heads. Others sit propped against barrels or weapon racks, letting their eyelids droop lower and lower until gravity gently claims them. A few ambitious souls hover between consciousness and dreams, wearing the same expression you see on babies and drunk philosophers. You find a spot beneath a tree with thin, scraggly branches that provide exactly enough shade to pretend they help. You sit down, stretch out your legs, and let the soft breeze whisper across your face. The earth beneath you is warm, the air thick with the smell of dust, leather, and faint hints of stew drifting from the cook tent. Your mind loosens, your shoulders settle, you exhale. Then you hear the unmistakable rattle of dice. You look over and see two soldiers sitting cross-legged over a flattened piece of cloth, shaking a small wooden cup. One of them, Lucius, who has the emotional intensity of a man who once fought a tree and lost, is watching the dice with narrowed eyes. The other, Maro, grins with the smugness of someone who has already accepted his role as the camp's unofficial dice champion. Lucius shakes the cup, slams it down dramatically and lifts it. The dice tumble out. Both men lean forward. "Ha!" Lucius shouts, punching the air triumphantly. "Finally! I told you the gods favour me today." Maro looks at the dice, then at Lucius, then at the dice again. "That's a 2, he says flatly. "It's a victorious 2, Lucius insists. "That doesn't exist." "It does now." "You can't. Stop the smirk tugging at your mouth." Soldiers nearby perk up, sensing entertainment. A few wander closer. Someone behind you mutters. Historians still argue whether Lucius actually knows how dice work. Someone else replies, "Historians don't need to argue. We live with him." A soft laugh rolls through the group. You lie back on your elbows and let the afternoon laziness sink deeper into your bones. The sky above you is a bright, endless blue, with thin clouds drifting like slow-moving thoughts. You blink slowly, letting your eyes half close. A soldier flops dramatically onto the ground beside you. "I am becoming one with the earth," he declares. "You're becoming one with laziness," his friend replies. "Same thing," the first mutters. You chuckle under your breath and close your eyes for a moment. The sun warms your face. The breeze cools your arms. Somewhere nearby, a mule lets out a long, deep sigh. One of those sighs that carries centuries of fatigue. You relate. A mainstream historical fact surfaces in your drifting mind. Roman soldiers often played gambling games during downtime. Dice, knucklebones, simple board games. Not for big wages usually, but for fun, for pride, and for the right to brag about small victories for the rest of the week. Even emperors complained that soldiers gambled more than they trained. Looking around, you believe it. A voice snaps you gently back to reality. "You want in?" Maro calls, holding up the dice cup. You raise a hand lazily. "Maybe later," you say. Lucius points at you dramatically. "He fears my power." Maro pats him on the shoulder. "No, Lucius. He fears boredom." The group laughs quietly. It's the perfect kind of laughter. Soft, warm, and requiring zero extra energy. You watch a pair of soldiers playing a simple guessing game with pebbles. One hides a pebble under his palm, switches his hands around, and challenges the other to guess which hand holds it. The guesser is wrong every time. Each wrong guess earns a stoic nod from the pebble hider, who seems to believe he's performing a sacred ritual. Nearby, a young recruit tries to nap sitting upright. His head droops forward, snaps back up, droops again, snaps back up. He loses the battle on the 4th round and slumps sideways into someone's shoulder. The older soldier doesn't even react, just continues cleaning his nails like this is the most normal thing in the world. A quirky tidbit floats into your thoughts. Soldiers sometimes name their dice, believing that lucky dice had personalities. You overhear one man whispering encouragement to his dice as if they are tiny, stubborn pets. "Come on, my little lions," he murmurs. "Roar for me." They do not roar. They fall flatly to the ground with a disappointing clatter. He sighs deeply. You stretch your arms and let your head fall back, letting the soft hum of idle conversation blend with the sounds of camp life. The distant thud of a hammer. In the workshop, the rhythmic snort of a horse, the faint bubbling of a pot over the cook fire. The entire world seems wrapped in a warm, sleepy haze. Someone gently tosses a pebble at your sandal. You look over to see Maro smirking. "Join us. The gods demand it." You crawl forward and sit with the dice players. The cup passes to you. You shake it casually, not caring if you win or lose. The dice spill out. You don't even look at the numbers. Lucius gasps. "Impossible." You glance down. It's a 4. You have absolutely no idea why he's shocked. Maro waves a hand. "Ignore him. He reacts that way to everything." Lucius nods solemnly. "It is my dramatic nature." You laugh softly, letting the easy rhythm of the game fold into the lazy afternoon. Eventually the sun shifts just enough to lengthen the shadows around you. Soldiers lie back, dice abandoned, pebbles dropped, naps resumed. The air cools slightly. The world feels even softer. You stretch one last time and rise to your feet, brushing dust from your tunic. The slow calm of the afternoon lingers warmly in your chest, and with your limbs loose and your mind pleasantly foggy, you drift toward the next quiet moment waiting for you in this uneventful, wonderfully sleepy Roman day. You rise from your spot beneath the shade tree, brushing dust from your tunic and rolling your shoulders as you rejoin the quiet afternoon flow of camp life. The heat has mellowed, softened around the edges, and now the entire camp feels like it's exhaling, long, slow, and content. You wander without much purpose, letting your feet decide where to take you, until a familiar set of sounds draws you in. Soft braying, gentle snorts, the rustle of hay, and the occasional cluck of an irritated chicken. The camp animals. This little corner of the Castra is a world of its own, tucked just beyond the storage tents. You follow the dirt path and soon the smell of animals, earthy, warm, unapologetic, slides into your senses. It's not unpleasant, just honest. As you round the corner, you see several soldiers already here, performing simple tasks or just hanging around the animals the same way people today hover around dogs at a party. The stables are shaded by a long wooden roof, and beneath it stand the mules, big-headed, stubborn-faced companions of every legionary march. One of them lifts its ears when you step closer, eyeing you with the mild suspicion of someone who's seen humans try too many stupid things. You walk up to it slowly, extending a hand. The mule sniffs your fingers, exhales a warm breath that smells like hay and mild judgment, then nudges your palm as if to say, "Fine, you may continue." You rub between its ears, feeling the rough softness of its fur. The mule leans into the touch. You smile. You've always liked this one. A mainstream historical fact comes to mind. Roman armies relied heavily on mules, not horses, for everyday transport. Tougher, quieter, less demanding, and infinitely more sarcastic in personality. Every soldier knew that a good mule was worth more than half the gear in camp, and also that a mule could hold a grudge longer than any centurion. To your right, a soldier is combing another mule's flank with long, patient strokes, sweat beads on his forehead. "He kicked me yesterday," he says without looking up, "but today we're working through our issues." The mule flicks its ear. You ask, "Has he apologized?" The soldier nods solemnly, with his eyes. "Historians still argue whether that counts," someone says behind you. You turn and spot a pair of recruits struggling, heroically failing to coax a different mule away from a pile of grain sacks. The mule stands with the immovable confidence of a small hill. One recruit pushes its hindquarters while the other pulls gently on a rope. Neither gets so much as a twitch. "It's not moving," one whispers. "It's thinking," the other says. You shake your head. A thinking mule is more dangerous than any barbarian. Near the stables, a cluster of chickens clucks around in a state of perpetual irritation. One hops onto a crate and stares at you as if you've arrived uninvited to its private event. Chickens in camp have two settings: offended and deeply offended. They scratch at the dirt, peck at stray crumbs, and occasionally chase each other for reasons known only to them. A soldier watches them and mutters, "Those chickens judge me more than my mother ever did." A quirky tidbit flutters into your mind. Roman soldiers sometimes kept small camp animals, chickens, goats, even dogs, not only for food or utility but for comfort. Animals made the camp feel less harsh, more human. Even in wartime, a soldier scratching a mule behind the ears is a soldier finding a little peace. Speaking of dogs, there's one now. An old, droopy-eyed camp dog wandering leisurely between the tents. His fur is a patchwork of browns and blacks, and his ears flop charmingly with each step. He trots toward you like he's meeting an old friend. You squat down, ruffling his fur. He sniffs your hand, then promptly sits on your foot with the full weight of a dog who has decided this is your problem now. "Ah," you say softly. You again. A nearby soldier laughs. He chooses new victims every afternoon. You're chosen today. The gods smile upon you. You scratch behind the dog's ears, and he leans harder against your leg with an audible groan of canine contentment. "He's heavy," you say. "He's dignified," the soldier corrects. You glance toward a makeshift pen where two goats chew cud, with the mindless satisfaction of animals who have no deadlines, no responsibilities, and no moral concerns whatsoever. One stares blankly into the distance. The other stares at the first goat. Not exactly intellectual giants, but undeniably entertaining. A few steps away, a soldier is repairing a broken yoke, muttering curses under his breath as he tightens the wooden pieces. As you pass, he sighs dramatically. "If this thing breaks again, I'm switching careers, perhaps pottery or dramatic poetry." "What's wrong with the yoke?" you ask. "It hates me," he answers without hesitation. "Historians still argue whether wooden objects can feel hatred," another soldier chimes in. You chuckle and keep walking. The entire animal area feels soft, grounded. almost domestic. You run your fingers along the wooden rail of the enclosure, feeling the warmth of the sun baked into it. You inhale the earthy scent again. You exhale slowly, letting the simplicity of the moment settle into your ribs. A breeze drifts through, lifting bits of hay and brushing against your neck. One of the chickens hops closer, eyeing the dust on your sandal, as if evaluating whether it's edible. You lift your foot. The chicken clucks disapprovingly and walks away like you've insulted its ancestors. The dog finally lifts himself off your foot and trots away toward a soldier holding a bit of bread. Traitor. You stand for another moment listening. The soft snort of a mule, the scratch-scratch of chickens, the bleat of a goat, the quiet murmur of soldiers tending to creatures who depend on them. It feels peaceful, slow, safe. Eventually a voice calls from across the yard, someone announcing the next rotation for perimeter duty. You stretch your back, give the mule one last pat and begin walking away, leaving behind the warm, earthy comfort of the camp animals. Another gentle task awaits. Another soft moment in this endless, quiet day far from battle. You take a deep breath of sun-warmed air and wander on. You leave the animals behind and make your way toward the camp perimeter, where the afternoon sun hangs lower now, stretching shadows long across the dusty ground. This is the time of day when the camp shifts into a quiet alertness. Not tense, not watchful in a dramatic sense, just aware. And for you, that means one of the simplest duties a Roman soldier can have. A perimeter patrol so uneventful that your mind will likely wander farther than your feet ever will. You approach the wall, thick wooden palisades rising above a shallow ditch, the structure sturdy but modest. A few soldiers are already there, leaning casually on spears or leaning even more casually on their own willpower. One nods as you arrive, shifting aside so you can join the slow circuit. Patrolling in a calm zone is a strange mix of responsibility and boredom. You're technically watching for threats, but realistically, you're walking a big wooden rectangle, listening to the breeze and occasionally squinting at trees in case they decide to rebel. You start your route along the top walkway of the wall. The wood creaks softly beneath your sandals. The air up here feels a little cooler, tinged with the faint scent of pine drifting from the nearby outskirts. From this vantage point, the world outside the camp stretches out in peaceful, unremarkable waves. Fields, scattered shrubs, the faint glitter of a distant stream. No enemy scouts, no traders approaching, not even a suspicious squirrel, just peace. A mainstream historical fact slips into your mind. Roman camps were designed for efficiency and safety, with clear sight lines from the walls so patrols could spot approaching trouble well before it arrived. Today, though, the only trouble is a cloud of dust kicked up by a lone goat wandering in the distance. You watch it amble across the field with the confidence of a creature that has absolutely nothing to do with your job. As you walk, another soldier, thin, a little twitchy, always ready with a thought nobody asked for, glances at you and whispers, "Did you hear?" Someone swears they saw a shadow moving near the tree line earlier. You raise an eyebrow. A shadow? He nods seriously. A tall one. You both stare at the tree line. The tree line does not move. Maybe it was a tree, you suggest. He pauses. Historians still argue whether trees walk when no one is watching. You give him a long, slow look. He grins, satisfied with himself. You continue walking, letting the conversation drift away. The repetitive steps feel soothing. The wooden railing is smooth beneath your palm. You trail your fingers along it as you go, enjoying the texture. Warm from the sun, worn from countless other hands doing the exact same thing. Below, inside the camp, you can see soldiers lounging in the shade, others fetching water, a few practicing lazy spear drills. The whole place has settled into the gentle hum of an afternoon with no expectations. The patrol takes you past the north corner tower, where two soldiers sit on crates, their spears leaning against the wall behind them. They straighten slightly as you approach, pretending they weren't just debating which centurion has the most intimidating eyebrows. One looks at you and whispers, "It's definitely the primus pilus." The other shakes his head. "No, the optio. His eyebrows could slice bread." You nod politely and keep walking before they drag you into this eyebrow hierarchy. Further along the perimeter, you pass a stretch where the shadows lie cooler, the air softer. It's a good spot to pause, take one slow breath, and then continue at a pace that is definitely regulation speed and not just you savouring the breeze. From here, the outside world looks almost serene, Rolling land, swaying grass, a couple of birds swooping lazily. You rest your weight on one leg for a moment, letting your spine loosen. A quirky little detail surfaces in your memory. Some Roman patrols left tiny carved marks on the wooden railings during long shifts, just small symbols scratched with the tip of a knife. Not as vandalism, but as something to focus on. You glance down and sure enough find a few. A tiny star, a lopsided helmet, what appears to be an angry face, and, your personal favourite, a crudely drawn fish wearing a crown. You smile. Soldiers really are the same in every century. As you continue along the walkway, you spot another soldier midway through carving something new. You lean in and ask, "What's that supposed to be?" He shrugs. "Could be a horse. Could be my mother-in-law." You decide not to ask further. The patrol loop continues in its slow, soothing rhythm. Step, look, step, look. Half listen to distant camp sounds. Feel the breeze. Enjoy the quiet. Repeat. In a strange way, it feels almost meditative. Your mind drifting between awareness and daydream as you follow the same path countless soldiers walked before you. Eventually you reach the south edge, where the land stretches into a long meadow. A pair of crows hop across the grass, pecking at something invisible. One takes off with a loud caw, its wings flashing black in the sunlight. You watch it for a moment, feeling a flicker of gentle envy. Wings would certainly make patrols faster. Your last stretch of the route leads you back toward the gate. Two gate guards stand beside each other, leaning more on their shields than their legs. One is humming a tune. The other is staring into the distance like he's writing poetry in his mind and forgetting every word immediately. After. They nod as you pass. "Quiet day?" one asks. "Very," you reply. The other guard says, "Good, my feet appreciate that." You laugh softly. "Same." Your patrol complete, you step down from the walkway and feel the solid ground beneath your sandals again. The world seems a little softer, the air a little cooler, the camp a little calmer after your quiet circuit of the perimeter. No excitement, no danger, no interruptions. Just a peaceful walk along wooden walls, watching the world rest. You breathe in deeply, feeling that serenity settle warmly inside your chest. And when you turn away from the walls, the camp welcomes you back into its gentle afternoon with open, drowsy arms. You step away from the perimeter, letting your feet carry you back toward the center of camp where the shadows grow longer and the air thickens with the warm scent of heated earth. The late afternoon has arrived, the sweetest time of day, when soldiers begin drifting naturally toward comfort, routine, and the quiet rituals that soothe the body after hours of slow, sun-soaked tasks. And nothing draws a Roman legionary during this hour quite like the bathhouse. Not a grand bathhouse, mind you. No polished marble, no towering ceilings, no mosaics telling heroic stories. This is the modest, portable version the army sets up whenever they're stationary for long enough. A wooden structure, canvas walls, clay basins, a furnace that crackles somewhere behind the building. Functional, plain, but wonderfully effective. You walk toward it and feel the temperature shift even before you step inside. Warmth presses gently against your skin. Steam threads its way through tiny gaps in the canvas. Voices echo with a muted, relaxed tone. A combination of low conversation, soft laughter, and the occasional dramatic sigh from someone who has just lowered themselves into hot water. You push aside the curtain and enter. The air inside wraps around you like a wool blanket fresh from the fire. Humid, soothing, heavy. Light filters in through slats in soft golden stripes, illuminating drifting clouds of steam. Several soldiers sit on wooden benches near the warm water basins. Others scrub dust from their arms with small cloths, or talk quietly as they soak their feet. The atmosphere is mellow, communal, and deeply human. You step toward a basin, rolling your shoulders as warmth envelops you. You dip your hands first, letting the heat seep into your fingers, then slowly lower your arms into the water. It's not hot enough to sting, but warm enough to loosen every muscle from your neck to your toes. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your memory. Even on campaign, Romans maintained some version of bathing culture. Maybe not full thermae with libraries and gymnasiums, but certainly warm water, steam, and the simple luxury of washing away the dust of the day. Cleanliness wasn't merely comfort, it was discipline. A healthy soldier was a reliable soldier. Across from you, too. Veterans sit shoulder to shoulder, leaning back against the wall with towels draped over their heads. "Long day?" one asks. "Longest," the other murmurs. "You did nothing." "Yes, for many hours." You smile at the accuracy. A nearby soldier scrubs dirt from behind his ears with the seriousness of a man preparing for an imperial audience. Another man dips a cloth into the warm basin, wrings it out carefully and begins wiping down his arms. He murmurs, "If the gods wanted us to stay clean, they wouldn't have invented dust." His friend replies, "Historians still argue whether dust is sentient." A third soldier adds, "If it is, it hates us." Soft laughter ripples through the room. You ease onto a bench and begin cleaning your face with warm water. The sensation sends a soft wave of relief across your skin, like releasing a tension you didn't know you were holding. You scrub your forearms next, feeling the grit and sweat dissolve under the cloth. Each pass feels lighter, easier, as if the day itself is slipping off your body. To your left, a group of soldiers has formed a semicircle around one man who insists he can whistle like a nightingale. He attempts it. It sounds nothing like a nightingale. Someone claps anyway. Another groans. Someone else says, "Please don't do that again." He attempts it again. You shake your head, smiling as steam curls around your cheeks. Near the furnace, an older soldier with thick grey stubble sits with his feet in a basin. He sees you and nods. "Quiet day," he says. "Very quiet," you reply. "Best kind. I'll take 10 quiet days over one loud one." You nod in agreement. Quiet days may be boring, but they're the kind you hope for. A quirky tidbit surfaces in your mind. Some soldiers swore that dipping their hands in warm water before sharpening tools made them steadier. Others believed the bathhouse was the best place for gossip because steam softened people's secrets. Judging by the conversations around you, that second theory might be true. You lean back, letting your shoulders settle against the warm wooden wall. The steam loosens everything, your muscles, your breath, even your thoughts. You feel the room breathing with you, the slow, shared exhale of dozens of tired men resting at the same time. There's something profoundly comforting about it. A soldier sits beside you, grabbing a clay jar of oil. He offers it your way. "Need some?" You take a bit, rubbing it lightly into your arms. The oil smells faintly of herbs, simple, earthy, grounding. The soldier nods approvingly. "Good for the skin," he says. "My mother always said dry skin leads to dry soul." "Is that true?" you ask. He shrugs. "She believed it, so I believe it." A slow, contented murmur spreads through the room as more men ease into basins or stretch on benches. No one is in a rush. No one is thinking about weapons or drills or chores. For a brief moment, the army feels less like an engine of war and more like a gathering of ordinary people trying to stay clean and sane. You wash your hands one last time, letting the warm water run off your fingertips. You inhale deeply, the mingled scent of steam, oil, wood, and warm water. You exhale even slower. When you step outside the bathhouse, the cooler air brushes your freshly cleaned skin. You feel lighter, clearer, softer. Your body hums with warmth, and your mind settles into a gentle, satisfied fog. The sun is dipping lower now, painting the camp in long shadows and rich gold. You stretch your arms, enjoying the looseness in your joints. Clean, calm, and quietly content, you wander toward the next soft rhythm waiting for you in the fading light. You step out of the bathhouse feeling loose, warm, and pleasantly foggy. The kind of relaxed where your muscles feel like softened wax and your brain floats 3 inches behind your eyes. The air outside has cooled into that perfect late afternoon softness, where the sun hovers low and everything turns gold around the edges. Shadows stretch gently across the camp, and the smell of cooking begins to drift through the air in warm, comforting waves. Your stomach rumbles. Right on time. You follow the scent, smoke, herbs, simmering broth, maybe lentils, until you reach the mess tent, a wide canvas structure propped up with wooden poles and lit by the orange glow of cooking fires. Soldiers gather in loose clusters outside, chatting quietly, stretching, or simply staring at the pot as though willing it to cook faster. A few mules linger nearby too, hoping the laws of the universe have finally changed, and today they will be allowed to eat human food. They will not. Inside, the cooks move with lazy efficiency. One stirs a huge bronze pot with a paddle big enough to row a boat. Another sprinkles in herbs from a pouch, sniffing the steam like a philosopher contemplating the meaning of flavour. A third ladles stew into bowls with the dead-eyed focus of a man who has served thousands of identical meals and will serve thousands more. You step into the line with the other soldiers, your bowl in hand. The men around you speak in the slow, mellow tones of evening. Smells better than yesterday. Everything smells better than yesterday. I once had stew in Syria that tasted like sorrow. This is better. I hope there's bread. There is always bread. Whether it's chewable is another matter. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your thoughts. Roman soldiers ate surprisingly consistent meals. Grain-based stews, bread, olive oil, legumes, sometimes meat, sometimes cheese. Nothing fancy, nothing dramatic, but reliable enough to fuel endless marching and occasional conquering. Dinner in a Roman camp was less celebration and more ritual, a grounding moment at the end of a long day. You shuffle forward until you reach the front of the line. The cook ladles thick stew into your bowl. It looks hearty. Lentils, carrots, onions, bits of salted pork if fortune smiles upon you today. A small ladle of broth sloshes over the rim. He adds a tough-looking slice of bread and grunts something that might be enjoy, or might be a compressed sneeze. You nod respectfully. You do not anger the cooks. You step aside and slip onto a long wooden bench beside a few familiar faces. The air is warm, the chatter soft, and the steam from your bowl curls upward in inviting spirals. You dip your spoon in and take the first bite. Rich, earthy, simple. The bread softens in the broth. Your stomach relaxes like it's been waiting all day for this one moment. Across from you, a soldier sighs dramatically. "This is the greatest stew ever made," he declares. Someone scoffs. "You say that every night." "And I mean it every night," he replies without hesitation. You smile into your bowl. Next to you, two men argue quietly over a rumour that the stew has actual pork tonight. "I saw a bit of meat in mine," one says. "That was probably a carrot," the other replies. "It was a very meaty carrot." Historians still argue whether you've ever seen pork in your life. They both laugh. The tent fills slowly as more soldiers wander in from their duties. The sound begins to swell. Not loud, but warm and woven with dozens of small conversations. Stories from the morning, complaints about chores, jokes about the mule with too much attitude, speculations about tomorrow's schedule, and underneath it all the comforting rhythm of spoons scraping bowls. You take another bite and let the warmth settle through your chest. The stew tastes better than usual, maybe because you're clean, maybe because you're tired, maybe because simple food hits different when the day has been soft and slow. A young recruit at the far end of the bench tries to blow on his stew too aggressively and splashes broth onto his sleeve. He freezes, mortified. The older soldier beside him hands him a cloth. "Happens to everyone," he says calmly. "The stew gods demand tribute." The recruit nods solemnly as though he has just learned an important spiritual lesson. To your left, a soldier sops up the last of his broth with a stubborn piece of bread that could double as a training weight. "This bread," he mutters, "is aging prematurely." Someone else replies, "So am I." The group chuckles, a soft wave rolling through the tent. A quirky tidbit passes through your mind. Some Roman units flavoured their stews with garum, fermented fish sauce. A few soldiers swear it makes everything better. A few insist it ruins everything it touches. Judging by the faint tang in the air, tonight's stew contains just enough garum to spark a gentle philosophical debate, but not enough to cause rebellion. You finish half your bowl before leaning back slightly, savouring the simple contentment that settles behind your ribs. Outside, the sky has begun shifting from gold to soft blue, and faint stars blink in the distance. Inside the tent, warmth radiates from the fires, and from the quiet camaraderie of dozens of men sharing this small moment of peace. You take another slow bite, another sip of watered wine. Your shoulders loosen further. The low murmur of voices blends with the crackle of the cooking fire, forming a kind of lullaby for weary soldiers. By the time your bowl is empty, the world feels pleasantly blurred. The soft torches flicker. The warmth in your stomach spreads like a slow tide. The tent hums with gentle after-dinner conversation. You rise, stretch, and step out into the cool evening air, clean, fed, relaxed, and ready to drift into the next quiet ritual of this peaceful, uneventful Roman night. You step out of the mess tent feeling pleasantly heavy, the warmth of the stew settling comfortably in your stomach like a soft, edible blanket. The evening air has shifted again, cooler now, carrying the faint metallic scent of the camp's extinguished fires and the sweet undercurrent of night settling in around the wooden walls. The sky glows with the last smear of sunset, a thin band of orange fading into deepening blue. Torches flicker to life across the castra, casting dancing gold shadows on the ground. And somewhere just ahead, drifting between tents like a lazy river of sound, comes the unmistakable melody of off-duty soldiers making music. Not good music, not flawless, divine, or professionally rehearsed music, just camp music, the kind made by men who are tired, clean, fed, and a little sentimental at this hour. The kind made not to impress, but to unwind. You follow the sound until you reach a small open area near the barracks. A group of soldiers sits in a loose semicircle, illuminated by a couple of torches stuck into the dirt. One man plucks at a small, two-stringed instrument shaped like a miniature harp. Another taps a drum made from stretched animal hide stretched over a wooden frame. A third holds a flute, slightly bent, slightly out of tune, slightly cursed, and coaxes a soft, wavering melody from it. They notice you but don't break rhythm. This is the sort of gathering where no invitation is needed. You simply drift in, sit down, and let the music wash over you like warm bathwater. You lower yourself onto a patch of grass, crossing your legs as the flute carries a lilting tune. The strings answer with a slow, thoughtful twang. The drum adds a heartbeat beneath it all, a soft, steady pulse. A mainstream historical fact rises in your thoughts. Roman soldiers used music not only to signal commands in battle, but also to bond in camp. Simple melodies, marching songs, drinking chants, even lullaby-like tunes to steady nerves after long days. Instruments travelled with legions as reliably as gear and rations did. Music was a glue, a comfort, a reminder that even warriors needed softness. One soldier, broad-shouldered, bearded, and clearly having a long-standing feud with rhythm, begins humming along, off-key, loudly. His friend elbows him gently. "You're scaring the flute," he whispers. The humming man whispers back, "The flute should be brave." The flute player, without stopping, mutters, "The flute is filing a complaint." Soft laughter drifts around the circle, blending with the warm, uneven melody. You lean back on your hands, letting your body relax deeper into the moment. The music isn't rehearsed. It's not even consistent. But it's perfect in its imperfections, like a handful of memories braided into a tune too soft for marching and too gentle for battle. One man begins singing, a low, velvety voice carrying a simple verse about a river, a home far away, and someone waiting beneath a fig tree. The lyrics are plain, almost childlike, but they hit you in the chest with surprising tenderness. His voice wavers slightly at the end like he's remembering someone. Next to him, a younger soldier tries to harmonize. It works for 2 notes, then absolutely does not work. The flute player pauses, looks at him and says, "Never do that again." The younger soldier nods solemnly. Understood. A quirky tidbit dances into your memory. Some soldiers believe singing together strengthened unit morale, claiming that voices in unison guard the soul. Others claimed it summoned good luck on the next march. Others just liked any excuse to avoid chores. Judging by the dramatic passion with which a man nearby taps his foot wildly off tempo, it might be a mix of all 3. The rhythm softens, the flute falls quiet, the strings linger on a long final note, then the drummer shifts to a slow, light pattern. Dum, 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 like the heartbeat of a tired evening. A new song begins, half murmured, half whistled. It's not really a melody, just a gentle chain of notes that rises and falls like breathing. Your shoulders loosen further, your eyelids droop. The moment feels wrapped in velvet. A soldier plops down beside you, clutching a cup of watered wine. He nudges your elbow with a lazy grin. "This," he says, gesturing vaguely toward the musicians, "is the finest entertainment in the Empire." You nod. "It's perfect," he sighs. "Tomorrow they will be awful again. Probably. That's the charm." Another soldier, lean, sunburned, and fully embracing the end-of-day tranquility, leans back and adds, Historians still argue whether we sing well or just think we do because we're tired. You glance around the circle. Definitely tired, someone says from the other side. The torches flicker, casting long shadows that sway like the music itself. A warm breeze passes through, carrying the final scent of sun-warmed dust and faint herb smoke from the cook tent. The camp around you grows quieter. Footsteps slow, voices soften, the evening transitions into stillness. Another song starts. This one's playful, a quick rhythm. The drummer perks up, tapping faster. The string player grins, plucking with renewed mischief. The flute player launches into a jaunty melody that squeaks at least once, but commits fully to the performance. A few men clap along. Someone snaps their fingers terribly out of time. Someone tries to whistle. Someone else tries to sing along without knowing any of the words. Someone in the back yells, "Louder!" Someone next to him yells, "No! Softer!" It is chaos. Gentle, harmless, wonderfully human chaos. The song winds down with a final dramatic flourish from the flute player, who, oddly enough, makes the last note sound almost professional. The group responds with a low rumble of appreciative murmurs, the Roman version of applause. The evening deepens, the sky shifts into indigo. A first star appears. You stand, stretching your limbs as the musicians settle into quieter tunes now, soft hums, muted strings, background melody for the night's slow fade. Your body feels warm, your mind feels airy, your heart feels steady. And as you step away from the circle of flickering torchlight and drifting music, you carry that soft, imperfect harmony with you into the deepening calm of the night. You drift away from the music circle, with the soft echo of strings and drums still fluttering in your ears, like the last ripples of a warm breeze slowly calming into stillness. The camp has now settled fully into evening, a deep, blue-tinted calm where every sound seems softer, rounder, and more willing to dissolve into the night air. Torches flicker along the main paths, their golden flames bending slightly in the gentle wind. The air has cooled enough to feel refreshing against your freshly washed skin, carrying with it the faint sense of smoke, pine, and distant earth. Your feet guide you toward another quiet corner of the camp, the watchfire area where the night guards gather before taking their turns on rotation. The glow of the fire draws you in long before you reach it, a steady orange pulse at the edge of the castra, like a beating heart keeping the night warm. When you arrive, a handful of soldiers sit around the low flames, their silhouettes outlined in glowing red. Some cradle shields on their laps, some lean on spears, some simply rest their hands near the warmth without speaking. The atmosphere isn't gloomy, it's peaceful, reflective. Night Watch has a way of making everyone thoughtful. You lower yourself onto a log beside the fire, stretching your legs toward the heat. The flames crackle softly, sending tiny sparks drifting upward until they vanish in the dark. You inhale deeply. The smell of burning wood mixes with the cool night air in that perfect ratio that makes your chest feel loose. A mainstream historical fact drifts through your mind. Roman night watches were organized into vigilia, rotations spanning the hours of darkness. Each shift was short enough to prevent exhaustion, but long enough to instill discipline. Soldiers rotated through them with practiced ease, treating nighttime vigilance as both duty and quiet meditation. The guard on your left adjusts his helmet strap. He has that half-tired, half-zoned-out expression you've seen on every night guard ever. "Nothing moving out there," he murmurs. "Not even a fox. I think the animals have decided to take a holiday." Another soldier pokes the fire with a stick, showering the embers with a spray of dancing sparks. "Good," he says in a low voice. "Let the foxes rest. Let us rest. Let everybody rest." Someone else chuckles softly. Historians still argue whether foxes respect Roman schedules. You smile, watching the flames flicker. Across from you, two soldiers whisper quietly about their homes far away, one from a small village near the mountains, the other from a bustling port city. Their voices drift across the fire like gentle waves, carrying stories of vineyards, festivals, loud markets, and quiet streets lit by lanterns. They're not sad, just reflective, letting memories rise and fade in the glow of the fire. A watcher climbs up the nearby ramp leading to the perimeter walkway. His silhouette passes in front of the stars before disappearing into the darkness above. The next guard stands, stretches, and prepares to take his place. The rotation is seamless, slow and soft. every movement designed not to disturb the calm. You lean back on your palms, gazing upward, and there it is, the night sky in full. Thousands of stars scattered like tiny silver nails hammered into a velvet canopy. You breathe slowly, letting the cool air fill your lungs as you trace constellations, the hunter, the bull, the twins. Stars have guided travelers, sailors, and soldiers for centuries. Now they watch over you, glowing quietly. Beside you, a soldier with a husky voice says, "The sky looks the same everywhere, you know. I like that." Another answers, "Not true. In my hometown, the stars are brighter." "They're not brighter. You just like the view more." A third murmurs, "Both can be true." The fire pops gently as if agreeing. A quirky tidbit drifts into your awareness. Some Roman soldiers believed certain stars watched over them, tiny guardians who followed them from camp to camp. Others used constellations to pass the time on long quiet watches, competing to see who could spot a new pattern first. You glance at the soldier beside you, tracing shapes in the sky with his finger. Looks like tonight's competition is unofficially underway. Another guard arrives, taking a seat near the flames. He holds a small wooden charm, worn, smooth, clearly beloved. He rubs it with his thumb absently, staring into the fire. "My daughter carved this," he whispers. "Said it would keep me safe." The soldier next to him nods. "Does it work?" He shrugs. "I'm still here." The group murmurs in quiet approval. You rest your forearms on your knees and let the fire's warmth soak slowly into your skin. The night is so peaceful you can almost feel it settle into your bones. The only sounds are the soft hiss of the fire, the distant murmur of soldiers finishing dinner, the occasional jingle of armor as a guard shifts his weight, and the wind, gentle, cool, endlessly patient, moving through the grass beyond the walls. Someone hums a low tune, barely more than a vibration. It mixes with the crackle of the fire, creating an accidental lullaby. A few heads droop. No one scolds them. Night watch has its own rhythm, and part of that rhythm is simply quiet. You close your eyes briefly, letting the warmth on your face and the cool air at your back blend together. Time feels slower here, softer. The world beyond the walls seems impossibly distant. When you open your eyes again, one of the guards is staring up at the stars with a faint smile. "You know," he says softly, "I think we'll remember nights like this more than battles." Another guard nods. "Battles are loud, but peace sticks with you." You breathe deeply, letting that thought settle. The fire crackles, the stars shimmer, the rotation continues with gentle steps. And you sit there, wrapped in the warm glow of the watchfire and the cool breath of the evening, soaking in one more pocket of calm in this long, quiet day far from battle. You sit a little longer by the watchfire, letting the warmth soak into your hands and the cool air wrap around your shoulders. The rotation continues smoothly. One guard climbs down from the walkway, another climbs up. A soft exchange of nods marking the quiet handover of responsibility. Eventually the fire shifts, collapsing in on itself with a low crackle. That's your cue to stand, stretch, and drift back toward the inner camp. The night has settled fully now. The sky's a deep velvet curtain scattered with shimmering stars. Torches burn low, casting long, gentle shadows across the tents. Everything feels softened. Voices, movement, even the air itself. You exhale slowly, savouring the calm, and wander toward the administrative tent where the courier has just arrived. You notice him immediately, a wiry man with dust on his cloak, his boots scuffed from travel. He's dropping a small bundle of wax tablets and scrolls onto a table, as if they weigh far more than they do. A few soldiers approach with that particular mix of hope and dread reserved for receiving letters. News from home is a precious thing, but it can be as sharp as a gladius. You join the small crowd gathering inside the tent. The lamps burn softly, casting golden halos on the wax tablets piled on the wooden table. The clerk reads names aloud, his voice monotone but carrying the gravity of a sacred ritual. "Marcus Livius!" "Here!" a man calls, stepping forward. "Publius Varinius!" A hand shoots up. "Gaius Severus!" A soldier exhales in relief. Then, "Your name." You lift your hand automatically, even though a tiny part of you wonders if it's wrong, if maybe you misheard. But no, there it is. Your tablet tied neatly with thin cord, sealed with a small familiar mark. You accept it gently, like holding a fragile piece of your old life. It feels warm from the courier's bag, its surface slightly worn. A flood of emotions wells up. Anticipation, nostalgia, curiosity, maybe a little fear. News can lift you or sink you. But even the worst news feels better than silence. Around you, soldiers open their letters, some eagerly, some cautiously, some with trembling hands. The tent fills with soft reactions, a quiet gasp, a relieved chuckle, a barely suppressed sob, a long exhale that sounds like a weight sliding off someone's back. A mainstream historical fact drifts into your memory. Roman soldiers were known to treasure letters from home so deeply that some carried them into battle sewn inside their tunics. A single piece of wax or parchment could ground them more than all the armor in the world. Tonight, you understand why. You step outside the tent into the cool night air and find a quiet place near a pile of stacked shields. You sit on one, letting the torchlight illuminate your hands as you untie the cord. The seal cracks gently beneath your thumb. You unfold the tablet and read. The message is short but full. Familiar handwriting, uneven from haste, carrying. News of family, the harvest, a neighbour's misadventure with a stubborn donkey, and a promise to write again soon. Nothing dramatic, nothing terrifying. Just everyday life continuing across the miles. The words make your chest feel warm in a way no fire can replicate. You reread a line twice, smiling at the crooked lettering. You trace the grooves of each word lightly with your finger, the wax soft under your touch. Even the messy parts feel dearer than gold. Nearby, a soldier sniffles loudly. Not dramatically, just enough to betray emotion. His friend nudges him gently. Good letter. He nods, swallowing. Very good. Another soldier laughs softly as he reads his tablet. My brother says he named his new pig after me. Is that good or bad? Someone asks. He shrugs. Depends on the pig. You glance over and see one man sitting alone, staring at a letter with a furrowed brow. You can't tell if it's good news or bad. You don't ask. Some emotions are private, delicate. In a quiet night like this, respecting silence is its own kindness. A quirky tidbit crosses your mind. Some soldiers received letters so rarely that when one finally arrived, they kept the wax tablet long after the message faded, polishing it, storing it carefully, even pretending to reread it after the writing smudged away. A sentimental tradition no historian can quantify, but one that whispers through centuries. You close your own tablet gently, holding it against your chest for a brief moment before tying the cord again. You feel different, lighter, connected, a thread stretching from this quiet camp to the world beyond its wooden walls. A few soldiers gather around a torch, sharing their messages in low voices. One reads aloud a joke from his cousin. Another describes his sister's upcoming wedding. Another speaks softly of new vines taking root on the family land. Tiny pieces of distant lives weaving themselves into this peaceful night. You tuck your letter safely into your pouch and stand, stretching your back. The camp is quieter now. Just a whisper of movement here and there, the low hum of distant conversation, a mule shifting in its sleep, the rustle of canvas. A soldier approaches you, holding his letter in one hand and rubbing his eyes with the other. Good news? He asks. You nod. Simple news, but good. He smiles. Sometimes simple is enough. He walks away, humming a tune you heard earlier in the music circle. You inhale the night air, cool, crisp, carrying a hint of smoke and something almost sweet. Stars shimmer overhead. The fire near the gate glows dimly in the distance. The world feels gently wrapped in a blanket of calm, and you walk toward your tent, the letter warm in your pouch, your heart warm in your chest, ready to drift into the final quiet stretch of this long, peaceful day. You walk slowly back toward your tent, your letter still tucked safely against your chest, its presence like a small lantern glowing, warmly inside you. The camp has gone soft and dim around you now, most torches burn low. The sky above is a deep velvety black, scattered with stars that shimmer like tiny pieces of polished bronze. A faint breeze moves through the rows of tents, lifting the canvas in gentle breaths, as if the entire camp is inhaling and exhaling in one slow rhythm. This is the quietest moment of the day, that special slice of night when even the most restless soldiers grow still and the world narrows to the soft rustle of blankets, the low murmur of a few last whispers, and the flickering glow of lamps about to burn out. You push aside the flap of your tent and step inside. The familiar dimness wraps around you immediately. Your bedroll looks welcoming after a long day of chores, drills, wandering, gossip, mules, stew, music, firelight, and letters. A few of your tent mates are already lying down, bundled in cloaks, their breathing steady. One snores softly through his nose, making a sound like a small donkey grumbling in its sleep. Another shifts, mumbling something about stew. Someone nearby rolls over and pulls his blanket higher. You sit on the edge of your bedroll and let your body settle into the space. The canvas walls rustle gently in the breeze. You loosen the ties of your tunic and stretch your toes beneath the blanket, feeling the cool fabric warm slowly beneath your feet. Your bones soften, your shoulders drop. A wave of calm rolls from your chest outward. A soft lamp glows in the corner of the tent, the last one lit. Its tiny flame dances lazily, throwing warm light across the wooden poles and the stacks of neatly arranged gear. The shadows wobble softly as if waving goodnight. The smell of oiled leather, wool blankets, and a faint hint of wood smoke fills the air. You reach into your pouch and pull out your letter again, just for one last look. The wax tablet sits warmly in your hands, its surface smooth beneath your fingertips. You trace a few lines gently, feeling the grooves of the handwriting. Then you tie it carefully and place it beside your bedroll where you can see it even in the low light. Across the tent, someone whispers, "Good night," to no one in particular. A voice answers softly, "Sleep well." Another mumbles something unintelligible but comforting. Soldiers aren't poets, but there's poetry in their quiet routines. A mainstream historical fact crosses your mind. Roman soldiers slept in shared tents of 8 men, called contubernia, small groups that formed tight-knit microfamilies within the legion. After months or years together, these men knew each other's breathing patterns, fears, jokes, habits, and dreams. In a way, nights like this were the glue that held them together more than any triumphant battle ever could. You lie down on your bedroll, pulling your cloak over your chest. It smells faintly of warm dust and sunlight. You tuck your arms beneath it and shift until your body finds that perfect alignment. Your hips supported, your shoulders relaxed, your head resting comfortably on the rolled-up cloak you call a pillow. Your eyelids grow heavy as the last tent mate slips inside, crawling silently into his place. He sighs, a long, contented sound that blends perfectly with the night. A quirky tidbit floats through your thoughts. Some soldiers believed whispering a small phrase before sleep protected them from nightmares. Not a prayer, not a chant, just a simple line like, "The day is done, and so am I." You hear someone across the tent murmur something similar, almost too soft to catch. You smile at the thought. Outside, the night guard's footsteps crunch gently along the camp path. Slow, steady, reliable. A torch flickers in the distance. The faint clink of armor echoes once, twice, then fades. Everything settles again. Your breathing slows, matching the quiet rhythm of the tent around you. Each inhale draws in cool air, each exhale releases the dust, warmth, and fatigue of the day. Your muscles loosen one by one. Your thoughts drift gently, not racing, not gripping, just floating like leaves on a calm river. You close your eyes. The camp is peaceful. The soldiers are safe. The night is soft. And you, wrapped in warmth, belly full, heart steady, let yourself sink into the calm. The last thing you hear before sleep pulls you under is the quiet, contented murmur of someone whispering, "Another peaceful day, let tomorrow be the same." And then the world fades into darkness. The night stretches outward, lengthening into a quiet cradle of stillness. The fire outside burns low now, its glow faint and amber, barely touching the edges of the tents. The breeze slows to a gentle sigh, brushing through the camp with fingers so soft they hardly stir the canvas. Everything, every footstep, every whisper, every memory of the day settles into silence. Your breath deepens. Your body sinks further into the warmth beneath you. The sounds around you blur into a soft, distant hum, like the world turning pages far away. The day's simple moments drift through your mind. Dusty paths, soft music, warm water, friendly chatter, each one fading into the next until they dissolve completely. You feel the weight of the blankets pressing lightly over you, steady and grounding. Your limbs loosen, heavy but peaceful. sinking slowly into the bedroll as if the earth itself is welcoming you into rest. The air grows cooler, wrapping you gently, carefully, like a soft hand guiding you towards sleep. The stars outside shimmer faintly, but you don't see them. You only feel their distant glow settling into your thoughts, calming, quieting, soothing. The world has slowed, the camp has stilled, and you are drifting. Thoughts soften into shapes, then into shadows, then into nothing at all. Each breath carries you deeper, smoothing away tension, smoothing away sound, smoothing away the long stretch of the day. Nothing is required of you now, no marching. No chores, no noise, just rest, just warmth. Just this quiet moment suspended gently between one day and the next. Let your mind loosen. Let your body grow heavy. Let the night cradle you. Sleep comes easily now,